Now let's turn to Brazil, which is hosting this year's G20 Summit. Last year, India was the host nation. It pulled off a very successful summit and passed on the baton to Brazil. So this time, all the G20 members and guest nations have gathered in Rio de Janeiro, including India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi. It's top number 2 in his 3-nation tour. He was in Nigeria over the weekend, and he heads to Guyana tomorrow. So Prime Minister Modi does not have much time in Brazil, but he's making the most of what he has, with as many meetings as possible. 10 bilaterals over the course of 2 days, with a range of countries and leaders. Old friends like French President Emmanuel Macron and Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, and new ones like British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and Indonesia's Prabowo Subianto. It's been a whirlwind G20 for the Indian Prime Minister. Our next report brings you the highlights.
The annual G20 Summit is taking place in Brazil this year, in Rio de Janeiro. The G20 stands for Group of 20. There are 19 member countries and 2 blocs, the European Union and the African Union. The AU joined last year, so the members now add up to 21. But no one's in a hurry to change the name. So it's still the G20. This is a group photo from the event, taken earlier today. You'll see most of the G20 leaders there, though 3 prominent ones are missing. US President Joe Biden, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. They were having a trilateral meeting and got delayed, so they ended up missing the family photo. Now, with that trivia out of the way, let's look at what's actually happening there, keeping the focus on India's activities. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has had a jam-packed schedule. He's taking part in 10 bilateral meetings over the course of 2 days. He held 6 bilaterals yesterday, 2 earlier today, and he has another 2 coming up. The bilaterals covered a range of countries. The first one was with France. This is the French President Emmanuel Macron's 3rd meeting with PM Modi this year. Their talks focused on the India-France strategic partnership, especially in areas like defense, space and nuclear energy. PM Modi's 2nd meeting was with the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. This was their first ever meeting. PM Modi has met with Starmer's predecessors. There have been a lot over the few years, but this was the first Modi-Starmer meet, and it seems to have gone well. Starmer wants to resume free trade negotiations with India. The countries have been trying to work out a free trade deal for years. Negotiations began back in 2022. But they've been on hold since March because of elections. Both India and the UK had general elections this year, so the talks were put on hold. Now the new British government wants to resume them. The deal could open both markets and supercharge trade between India and the UK, so it's a priority for both nations. PM Modi also met Italian PM Giorgia Meloni yesterday. It was their 5th meeting in the last 2 years. They announced a new action plan after the bilateral, called the Joint Strategic Action Plan 2025 to 29. It outlines what India and Italy will work on over the next 5 years. So the leaders plan to keep up their collaboration in the years ahead. PM Modi also met the leaders of Norway, Portugal and Indonesia yesterday. This was his first meeting with Portugal's Luis Montenegro, who was elected in April, and Indonesia's Prabowo Subianto, who took office last month. Indonesia is a fellow G20 member nation, so it's essential to maintain good ties. The meeting with Norway and Portugal showed that India is looking beyond its traditional partners. Today, Prime Minister Modi met with the host, Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. As the host, Brazil set the agenda at this year's G20 Summit. The country wants to build a global alliance against hunger and poverty, and India has promised to fully support the initiative. PM Modi's other meetings today are with Chilean President Gabriel Boric, Argentina's Javier Milei, and Australian PM Anthony Albanese. As you can see, it's been a hectic G20 summit for PM Modi. Proof of India's growing political stature.